some chapter. Abraham comes to Egypt. And he heard that if Pharaoh were to know that Sarah was his wife, they both would be killed. So guess what? He told her that she can say that she was what? His sister. That is not in the Quran. So the story of Abraham, all the way up to them, the same as in the Bible. Then the Quran says, I have a new reconstruction of that specific narrative. Because prophets are sinless, and for them goals do not justify means, he said, let's speak the truth. For only the truth shall set you free. And she spoke the truth, and God put it in the heart of Abraham, because of the truth, to just not kill her. See that reconstruction of the story? So this is where you find a new reconstruction of certain narratives to give a new image of these prophets, to protect them from a potential flaw in their personalities or characters as a prophet. But these guys are supposed to be our role models. These guys are supposed to be our role models, our examples. Are you with me? That's what I mean by new stories about the prophets, about messengers. So some of the stories that you read in the Bible, you will read in the Quran, as I said earlier, but sometimes a reconstruction of what really happened. The story of the sacrifice of Jesus. The Quran will take it almost the same as in the Bible in terms of what happened and his mission and his ministry and calling people to God and to social justice. But the Quran would depart from Christianity as to what happened. The Quran acknowledged that there was a plot. The Quran called it Mecca. Very bad plot to crucify Jesus. However, according to the Quranic reconstruction of the story, Jesus called unto God, my Lord and the Lord of my people, forsake me not as my people have forsaken me. You read that in the Islamic tradition. So the Islamic tradition says now, when it departs from Christianity, saying, wait a minute, God sent Gabriel down to earth to take Jesus up to heavens alive, where Jesus has been since then. That's where you see that departation from Christian narrative of Jesus. Okay. What about the story of the creation of Adam and Eve? And where in the Bible you see that narrative of basically Eve comes out from the rib of Adam. The Quran, acknowledging the story of the whispering in the ear of, but the Quran says, kilahuma, both of them. So the Quran would not say that Eve comes from the rib of Adam. The Quran says that Eve and Adam were created min nafsin wahida, from the same essence. Some scholars of tafsir say that same essence is the same turab, the same dust. And that's the theology I espouse. That God put a handful of dust together, said be, and it became Adam and Eve at the same time. For me, to mean equality in creation. That God did not create Adam first and Eve second. God created both of them with the same command to show equality between men and women. Number two, the Quran says, min nafsin wahida, from the same essence, with absolutely no separation between men and women. Again, equality between men and women. So when I talk about gender issues, I start with that specific narrative. The equality in creation from the same essence and from the same order. They both came out. Number two, the Quran says, La ta'kula. You both do not eat from that tree. So it's not God spoke to me, I'm Mr. Man. Then I went and told my wife in the basement, by the way, God says to me to tell you. Why would God need to do that? God can speak to both men and women at the same time. So the idea that God had to go through a male to speak to a female, for me, is foreign to the discipline of the Quran. Because of that, it is mentioned in the Quran 9 times, where God speaks to both Adam and Eve with the same verb. La ta'kula, you both do not eat, you both do not do, you both do, you both do. Speaking to both of them at the same time. To mean, as this guy says, Afzal Rahman, that equal command to Adam and Eve means equality before the law. And therefore, when you do a policy on the ground, on earth, it has to reflect that specific verse. That under the law of any country, women and men have to be spoken to as equal partners in that society. Number two, objective. So again, offering a new paradigm of what creed is, what faith is. Another thing that the Quran offers here about number one is faith is what faith does. Faith by itself is not enough. So I want to know you by your fruit, and don't tell me I believe in God and that's it, and you can do whatever you want. You have to translate your faith into action. And this is repeated in the Quran so many times. Every time, by the way, you have the word faith, iman, you have the word amal, act and deed. The Quran does not separate between faith and deed. You have to have faith in God, but you have to translate that faith into action, into deed, into action. Number two, affirmation of human rights and dignity. There's so many verses, I don't have the time to recite all of them, but it starts from that verse, and I, God, have honored all the children of Adam, if you will, of the human race. You find that in Surah Isra, ayah 17. Or in Surah An'am, Surah 5, ayah 151. And kill not your children. In Surah At-Takwir, ayah 8, ayah 9, the Quran speaks about how on the day of judgment, women who were buried alive because of being female will come to the divine court to ask for their rights from those who buried them alive. I understand this ayah metaphorically too. Every time a woman is deprived from her right, whether back to the context, the question you asked, this specifically speaks about the specific practice that existed in Arabia, in Mecca, before the Prophet, where people who had more than one female, they would kill them, being, a source of shame to have a female daughter or child born. So though the Quran speaks about specific practice that specifically existed in Mecca, it can be made relevant throughout time till the end of time, to understand the spirit of the verse, not the literal meaning of the verse. The ayah talks about those who were buried alive and prevented from living. And I say, don't we do that in the 21st century? Yes, we do. Women who are prevented from education, access to education in Afghanistan, are faced with that very reality, even if they're still living, so-called, in the households of their fathers. A woman who is told, the fatwa that just came out from the Ulama Council of Afghanistan, or by the system of Saudi Arabia, that you cannot travel alone without a male protecting guardian. For me, that is taking things really out of context and burying them alive. A girl who was forced to marriage at age 15 is being buried alive. A woman who was told all kinds of things. So for me, this verse, though it speaks about specific reality that happened in Arabia 1400 years ago, can become a general ruling for how we behave with women throughout time, where women never feel that they are out unrespected. There's so many verses in the Quran that talk about this, how you affirm that human right and dignity for all people. The third most important objective of the Quran, without any doubt, is tazkiyah. I call it uplifting of the human soul. I said this to a few people recently, and Noreen was there, and she seemed to have liked it. We have some doctors here, physicians? No? Okay, it's okay. Look at me here. For me, this is the message of the Quran, this circle. According to Islamic biomedical ethics, every human being is made of four things. The brain, the heart, soul, and the flesh. Every one of us is made of the intellect, the intellectual side of who you are, the emotional side of who you are, the spiritual side of who you are, and the physical side of who you are. All of you are supposed to think and reflect and use your brains. All of us have emotions of love and hate and rejection. All of us are born to eat and drink and enjoy intimacy and travel and sleep and laugh and enjoy life. Huh? All of us are also meant to be spiritually uplifted. Every one of these contribute to 25% of the human being well-being. So the Quran is meant to tell you, all Muslim, meet the demands of your brain, the demands of your heart, the demands of your flesh, and the demands of your soul, to be a peaceful person. So you cannot tell me I'm going to commit myself to celibacy and live in the mountains away from the world and not eat and not drink and not enjoy life. Islam condemns that. Islam says, قُلْ مَنْ حَرَّمَ, the Quran, قُلْ مَنْ حَرَّمَ زِينَةَ اللَّهِ وَالطَّيِّبَاتِ مِنَ الرِّزْقِ الَّتِي أَخْرَجَ لِعِبَادِهِ. Say, who dares to prevent you from enjoying the good thing that God gave you in this earth? So God meant for you to laugh and meant for you, so these miserable imams. I saw this imam recently for the whole hour. Brother, no, we Muslims are supposed to think about the life to come. And this means we have to be serious. The Prophet said, smiling is an act of charity, yeah? But smiling is also a natural thing that your body would want you to do. Have you studied this? It's online, by the way. I found it a few years ago. Every time you smile for up to 9 seconds, 78 muscles in your body react to it. Otherwise, you know this, otherwise these muscles die with time. React to smiling. Smiling. So the idea of reacting here, smiling, affects your heart and affects your brain. This is why the first revelation of the Quran addresses this. Read and think. Then after that, some of the revelations address this. قُمِ اللَّيْلَ إِلَّا قَلِيلًا. We'll talk about it in a second. Stand up in the midst of the night for prayer. Then a few verses after that, it talks about how to you get out in the world and enjoy it. But in between, there are a few verses about how you have to react to your heart demands. It's natural to love. It's natural to fall in love. It's natural to feel affectionate with the creation around you, with God, with people around you. See where I'm coming from? So this is what the Quran is trying to do. This happens with tazkiyah. So there's so many verses about prayer and about qiyamul layl and spending the night and making dhikr and meditation and all this stuff. Why? To take care of this. But what about if you only take care of this, but overlook this? You will not have a full well-being. What if you only take care of this, but you forget this? What about if you are physically fit, but emotionally not? You don't want to be around that kind of person who has good muscles, but not physically. Exactly. I mean, you think about it. You need a well-rounded person, mentally, emotionally, physically, and spiritually. This is exactly what the Quran is trying to do throughout its verses. How can you bring about this tazkiyah, this concept of spiritual empowerment of the human being through so many things? I have a YouTube on this. I talk about how the Quran, when the Quran talks about prayer, the Quran talks about 5 daily prayers, and the Quran talks about a different type of prayer, basically walking around. Walking by the Botanic River is a concept, is a form of prayer in the Quran. Looking at your birds, if you have some birds at the house, is a form of prayer. Taking your spouse for a hang, out on the beach, is a form of prayer. When the Quran, so many of its verses says, قُلْ سِيرُوا فِي الْأَرْضِ. Say, walk in the earth to discover God's beauty. Oh my God. We have some Muslim scholars who say that artwork is haram and museums are haram. What are you talking about? I walk in museums and I feel good about God. Isn't that true? I see the birds, I see flowers, it makes, oh my God, touches my heart and soul. It makes me love God more and more. I want to fall in love with this loving, amazing God of art. All because of that. Building a witnessing ummah, called in Arabic in Quran, ummah shahida, unto humanity with a message of unity, moderation, and godliness. The idea here is in the Quran, in Surah Anbiya, Surah the Prophets, for the Prophets, verse 107. It says, O Muhammad, I God have sent you or sent you only for a message of mercy unto mankind. So that's a quite important message. In Surah 2, I find this fascinating, by the way, very fascinating. The Muslims here, Surah Al-Baqarah, Surah 2, how many verses is it? You know, without cheating. How many verses is it? 200? Nuriya? 206? 200? 286. It's 286 verses. Chapter 2. Listen to this. 143 verse. Number 143, which is exactly in the middle,